Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. In this one I want to do some speculation discussion on the upcoming Legend of Korra comic, the first Korra one-shot comic, and that is the Mako one-shot Mystery of Penquan Island. And this is coming out February 25th/26th, 2025. Again, the two separate dates are just the Tuesday, the 25th is going to be the digital date, and if you order it from most places online, you're going to be getting it for the 25th. The 26th is the comic book store date because it's a Wednesday. But yeah, this was obviously the big news that we got from San Diego Comic-Con, which was that this book finally got solicited. So we have a description to go off here. We got the date, of course, and we also got some new preview pages as well. So we're now up to, what is it? I think 6 preview pages, but we'll probably get more closer to release. Though I'm not sure how much more than what we have we actually will get. So I think it's a decent time to do some proper in-depth speculation on this now that we have a little bit more of a sense for what the book is about. Though, if we did have a little bit more of a preview, we would definitely have, I think, more to speculate on. So of course we've had the cover for quite a while. It by itself got us very excited for this book because, okay, so we knew it was a Mako solo kind of comic, but okay, Bolin's going to be involved as well. Makes sense because, yes, the book is actually going to delve into stuff that relates to Mako and Bolin's family history, because you can see here the burning family portrait in the background. So what's going on? Obviously, the arrival at a mysterious fire island is obviously very interesting, though it has been a bit overused as a plot point in Avatar recently, so it'll be interesting to see how they go about portraying Penquan Island here in this book. But we'll start off with the description, which is obviously one of the newer things that we have here. So this is straight from the Penguin Random House website, Dark Horse website, whatever way you want to say it. Mako and Bolin set off towards Penquan Island in the Fire Nation to find answers to a case, and maybe a little bit of their past along the way. When a strange missing persons case falls into his lap, Mako is forced to choose between his job and doing what he feels is right. An upturned room and an unhelpful witness aren't promising starts to the investigation. But when his brother Bolin comes across a surprising clue that ties their own mother to the case, the pair embark on a journey to the small, rustic island of Penquan. The island's inhabitants seem to have things to hide, and the brothers are determined to get to the bottom of it, even if it means uncovering uncomfortable parts of their family's past. So, some interesting stuff in here straight away. So, okay, we know we're going to a new fire island, of course. Multiple mentions to the idea that it's going to delve into the brothers' past. And the only thing that this can actually refer to is basically their parents. But they confirm in the second reference to this that it seems to be more focused on their mother, Naoki, than it is San. Which I think makes sense because we already kind of explored the father's side of the family in book 3 of Korra. And so I don't think there's really too much of a dark history there, but there's obviously some potential here with their mother, which is the Fire Nation side of the family. And that's very interesting, as we will get into. They do say it is uncomfortable parts of their family's past. So this definitely obviously confirms to us there is more to, I guess, their mother. There is more to, I suppose them as a couple, San and Naoki, and, their life in Republic City prior to their deaths. And it probably means there is more to why they were killed. Because it's always been this thing where it seems like a little bit of, really, was it just a random kind of mugging kind of gone wrong? Or were they targeted? And this is maybe setting up the idea, maybe something happened that caused them to be targeted, and to make it uncomfortable, I think that has to be part of the case. So what is the situation here, and that we're doing, of course, because they talk about here the island's inhabitants seem to have things to hide. So they obviously, I guess, know stuff about Naoki and potentially the story that we don't have, which is why did she leave her home island to go to Republic City? We know why San did. He wanted to get out of the lower rings of Ba Sing Se, but why did the mother leave her, I guess, home Fire Island? That's intriguing. But we'll get back to this stuff as we go through here. So let's take a look at the preview pages. Thankfully, they have posted them in clear kind of form, so we can actually read them properly here. So Republic City Police Headquarters, of course, and we see the detectives, of course. So Mako, obviously, we know for a while has been promoted. He is now a proper detective, I guess, relatively high up, and we see some of the other detectives talking. I think it's helping my form anyway. I'll have to try. Did you see that mover about the dancer who was raised by owl wolves? And then they bring Mako into the conversation. Oh, Mako, wasn't your brother in the movers? Come here, tell us about it. And he's obviously just trying to do his reports and stuff like that. He doesn't really... He as a character, I think, doesn't ever tend to over-embellish this sort of thing. If they talk to Bolin, I guess Bolin would maybe be more open to talking about this stuff, but the type of character that Mako is, he's never going to brag about the fact that he has all of these crazy accomplishments. And that's kind of what they highlight here, is that your brother's been in the movers, you are a former pro bender, you used to date the Avatar, you're a member of, the current Avatar's team Avatar, all this sort of stuff. Like, he is a superstar of a character in that sense. But he's just like, I'm just here doing my job like you guys are. And he doesn't think himself it's overly exciting, even though it actually really was. And so it makes him come across a little bit boring to the other guys here, who they want to hear some of this kind of fun, crazy stuff about this young guy who has this kind of crazy life. And he's just trying to be a good detective. That's what I do now. And they joke about, solve the case of your missing personality. They do say they're just teasing him, so it's not as bad as I suppose the way it was with Lu and Gon in like book 2 and stuff like that. But you can see the idea here is that hopefully maybe they'll bookmark this comic with the idea that Mako returns and might be a little bit more open with the others. Maybe might tell them a story or two while still being himself, but not being so... I'm just focused on my work style thing. Like, just being a little bit more open, that hopefully this mission can bring a slightly different side out to him. That's kind of what we want to see from a character development point of view. Then the request comes in. A detective requested in the lobby. Interestingly, he hopped over his desk immediately. Anything to get out of this situation. He wants to, be in action immediately. And so, yes, Detective Mako comes in. Just tell him what the problem is, and I'm sure we'll get this figured out. Let's head back to my desk. So, these kids have come into the police station with a problem. Now, based on the description, let's go back up again. It's a strange missing persons case. So, you have to remember that in the context of this. Of that, like, I'm guessing they are reporting that someone has gone missing. Upturned room, unhelpful witness. Okay, so... Is that what we're talking about here? Is it these kids who are the witnesses to someone who's gone missing? Is it their father or something like that? Because as we go into the unfinished preview pages that we got from, like, New York Comic Con last year, they are the pages that happen after this. Because obviously Mako's like, let's head back to my desk. And then we jump ahead to them at the desk. Now, we don't get the speech bubble, so we don't know what dialogue is being said here, but it seems like they're about to open up. Mako is able to forge a bit of a connection, where it goes from him being quite stern and not wanting to talk to a police officer to Mako is able to get them to actually talk and open up. And you can see the smile on Mako's face here. He's obviously quite good with the kids here. But then we actually get a cut, because you can see this is page 5, and then there's a break. This is page 7, so we don't get to see what's on page 6, which I'm guessing is this, I guess, their mother. They seem old enough. Yeah, I'm guessing it is their mother comes in and takes them away. And I'm guessing she is maybe more what we're leaning towards with the unhelpful witness, or at least the mother is making it so that the kids are unhelpful witnesses for whatever reason. Now, what exactly are we going for here? Is she also from like Penquan Island or something like that? Did she maybe know Mako's mother? There's some things that they might be able to do here, but yeah, obviously it's super early speculation about the intro to the story here. But they seem to present the idea. Mako has made a bit of a connection with this. I'm guessing he sees a little bit of himself in the boy, especially if the idea is that maybe it is like the father who's gone missing or something like that, or if this is maybe not their mother but their actual mother's gone missing. There's a lot of stuff that we don't super know about. Like, has a child, is there meant to be another kid in here? Like, has a child gone missing? We don't know the full story, but what's going on here? And then we go from page 7 to page 9. So again, they skip another page in terms of what they show us. And this is where Mako comes back. Bolin is here, of course. Again, keep in mind, at this point, Bolin is also a police officer as well. But Bolin says something, I guess, to Mako. Mako goes, "Oh," and then immediately goes to head back out. And Bolin, of course, finds this a bit odd. But what does Bolin say? Like, because they do, again, in going back to the description, highlight that Bolin is the one who finds the key piece of evidence. Bolin comes across a surprising clue that ties their own mother to the case. I doubt that page is enough to get there, but obviously, again, there's 1 or 2 pages that are missing from this kind of opening sequence of pages, because I'm assuming this probably is the first page of the book. So we get like page 1, 2, 3, and then maybe we have there. I think there's probably a page 4 here. 5, we skip 1, we don't get 6, we get 7. We skip 8, we get 9. Because again, these pages, these comics are 72 pages, not including the kind of credits pages at the start and the advertising pages at the back. 72 pages of actual content, where like the artist actually has to, do the art, of course. So we seem to stop on the preview side of things just before we're about to kind of launch into the story. Like what Mako goes to do next might be like the really interesting kind of opening section of the book. So unfortunately, the preview pages do leave us in a spot where it's just like the preview pages just give kind of a little bit of context to the premise from the description rather than actually telling us anything super interesting and unique. But let's get into some further analysis here. So, of course, this is a big one because it's in the cover. Of course, this is a screenshot from, I think this is like 303, K303 from Korra, where we see that San's family has a letter and a photo from him. It's like the only thing they ever got. And the same photo is in the cover of the book, burning. Now, obviously there could be copies of a photo, and that's one of the things that maybe is going to come into play here is I don't think there's really going to be any way where somehow someone else gets a hold of this exact copy of this picture. So the question kind of at this point kind of needs to be, in the same day, I suppose, that San sent a photo and a letter to his family, did Naoki send a letter and a photo to her family? And this obviously highlights the idea that there are 2 copies of this picture, and one of them we know can't really turn up in this story, but them finding the other one would certainly open up the mother's story in the plot. And let's do a quick recap on what we do know about the parents. I think I've mentioned it roughly already in the video, but obviously with San, it's like he comes from the lower ring of Ba Sing Se, big family. He left to go to Republic City to make a better life for himself. This caused a big rift between him and his family because his family wanted him to sort of take over the business in Ba Sing Se, but he didn't want that. And the idea is that they didn't really speak after that point, except for him sending the picture and the letter, just to make it clear that, hey, I have a family of my own. I have made something of myself. Other than that, all we know is that at some point he met Naoki, and together they had Mako and Bolin. We know even less about the mother, Naoki, which is just that she is from the Fire Nation, because of course, that's the whole point here, is that this is a family where their children end up being an earthbender and a firebender. So Naoki's always been Fire Nation. San, we know, is from Ba Sing Se. And now the implication, I think, here is definitely that she is probably from Penquan Island. I don't really see what the connection is maybe otherwise if that's not the case. I think that's going to be the significant point in this book, is that the brothers go to this island and eventually find out that, oh, this is where our mother's from, and potentially get to meet their mother's side of the family if there's any left, of course. That's an interesting point, obviously. Otherwise, like it's kind of hard to speculate massively about just Naoki, because we don't know anything about her except that she's from the Fire Nation, and eventually she had the relationship with San. Now, are they going to explain that as well? Like, will they give the tragic kind of aspect of this a backstory, but might they also go into sort of the idea of, here's how San and Naoki met in the first place? Because if there is a dark aspect to one or maybe both of their stories, the idea is that is now a history they share. So either one of them or both of them are aware of that, but still kind of went ahead with the relationship. So that's an interesting one. Which brings up their death, which of course we know about from early days. It gets recapped, of course, in that episode 3, the Earth Queen from Korra, that episode, that San and Naoki were both killed by a firebender mugger, kind of right in front of, the Mako. And the idea is that, okay, Fire Island, Penquan Island in focus, is the idea here that this might not have been a simple mugging. That did Naoki leave her island on bad terms, and maybe whatever the situation is here, this is maybe why the couple were targeted at a later point. And this maybe is kind of what's happening once again, is that this was actually maybe, what was it meant to be, actually maybe a kidnapping, but it ended up becoming a double murder. And maybe, like, this is the point here. Like, are we going to maybe meet the character who killed the two? Or is this more of a situation that just goes back to the clan? Because, again, firebenders who killed them. Because obviously this was a little bit of a kind of meme type thing in early Korra, where we find out that, of course, Mako and Bolin lost their parents to a firebender, but then Asami also lost her mother to a firebender as well, and they were really leaning into that. So it kind of, it's always felt like something where, like, I think with one of these stories, you have to make, I think, more out of it than just random firebender criminal did something bad. And I think that's what they're trying to do, I think, with this story. But that is a big thing. Like, was this just purely an accident, or were they targeted for one reason or another? Now, the story is implying that it's related to the mother's past, and of course that's the reason we're going to her island, potentially. But anyway, the photo, I think we need to discuss this as well, of course. The idea of, like I said, how many copies of this photo are there? If San sent one, Naoki must have also maybe sent one as well. That feels like one of the only ways the picture is going to come up in the context of everything. And the idea is that what Bolin finds? Does he find a copy of this picture? And then if he does find a copy of the picture, he probably would find a letter with it. And the letter would be the thing that confirms that, oh, but our mother also sent a letter at the same time as our father did to her family, and that's what brings them back to Penquan Island. Now, the big question is, of course, who came into possession of this letter to where it would come into Bolin's possession is an interesting discussion, of course. But right now, that's the only real thing that I can think of, because I think fundamentally we are just going to need to learn something more about Naoki, or what the culture on Penquan Island is. Like, what did Naoki do before she left? Just, I suppose, maybe as a job, what is the main thing that is done on the island? Is it a fishing island? That sort of idea. Is there something else that goes on here? Like, is organized crime maybe a thing that is a major thing on the island here? Because if you go back to the cover, the other point is like there's this kind of like ferry basically, which I'm guessing is how Mako and Bolin arrived there. But the idea is there human trafficking or something like that going on here? Is that what we're doing here? Because again, it's a missing persons case. So has someone been taken, kidnapped? We don't know if it is a kid or not, you know. There's all of these sort of questions. And did something like that happen to Naoki, or was her family involved in something like this? Like there's a lot of things to kind of delve into here that could be the case, because we are ultimately just in pure speculation mode because we don't know enough about it to have directed speculation ultimately. The final thing probably is just on characters. So what is the Mako character arc going to be in this Mako one-shot? Because it's his book. Bolin is going to be there as, I think, an important support role, and also because it's about his family as well. But I think they are going to maintain the Mako focus throughout this comic, which is the right thing to do. Mako needs the attention more than Bolin does. So what are they doing? The preview pages definitely present the idea of, okay, it's this Mako who a lot of people tend to find boring, that he has no personality, he's maybe not showing as much emotion as he should, he's dedicated to his job, maybe he's a little bit too by the rules and all this sort of stuff. So that to me suggests that straight away, this case is going to bring emotion out of Mako. That when he realizes his family is involved, his mother, and that it might relate to the details surrounding the death, that is going to be a major thing for him, because it seems like the idea is that Bolin perhaps doesn't overly remember the real details or emotions surrounding the death of the parents, but Mako does, because he was older. He really remembers this, and it's a huge part of him. So I think that's why I think Mako is probably the more likely one to have the really extreme emotions about what's going to happen here. So Bolin is going to have to a certain degree act as support for Mako throughout all of this, that maybe he has dealt with this, accepted a lot of what's happened. Mako, it will be interesting to see this a more intense Mako in this book. I think that would help get him across, I think, a lot better as a character. But then the idea is, you know, there's obviously the reveal of the truth about what actually happened, but then what happens if, you know, to a certain degree, the parents are maybe to blame for part of what happened, that they got themselves targeted for whatever reason by doing something maybe wrong themselves. It depends on what the truth of the whole situation actually is. You know, if it is more than random mugging, how will they react? Is the book going to be about them finding the person who did it, or is it just like this is a side thing and it's just going to be an exploration of like their mother's, like where she grew up, and that there happens to be something else going on here, and it is more of the exploration of like why she left the island? That could be interesting, because what is the wording again in the description when it comes to this missing persons case? Okay. Their own mother, a clue ties their mother to the case, which is like, okay, how does their mother, who died quite a few years ago, how on earth could that tie to something that's like just happened? And it would have to be that the person who did it has also done something in the past and is maybe from the island themselves, and it just gets into that whole idea of, yeah, I guess there is a crime undercurrent on Penquan Island, and that might be the thing. And then the big thing that I think we've been speculating about for a while is the idea of, again, sorry, I'll go back up again, as presented in this, of like he's forced to choose between his job and what he feels is right. So obviously I think there's going to be an aspect of this about just when he decides to investigate this. I'm guessing officially, because he's personally involved, he is not meant to be on the case, but he chooses to be involved in the case because he feels it's what he has to do. Maybe otherwise he doesn't feel like people will investigate it well. But then when he gets onto the case, and especially if we do get down to the idea of if he maybe is hunting the person who killed his mother, are we going to get a bit of Southern Raiders style stuff out of Mako here, of the idea of when you find this guy, what are you going to do to him? Is it about revenge, or will it be enough for you as a detective to take him in and have him be arrested and put in prison? Like, is that what Mako wants? And I'm wondering, are we going to get a big moment of Bolin having to kind of really ask Mako this question in that kind of really emotional way? Because the idea is that the brothers as a tag team are more than capable of defending themselves against really any threat that they could come across, because Mako is one of the most skilled firebenders pretty much in the franchise. He's got lightning generation, redirection, and he's a super skilled firebender just in general. Bolin is a lava bender and also an incredibly like precise and skilled earthbender. Like, the fighting aspect of this book, you kind of wonder, is like, that has to be second place. Like, I expect there to be a little bit of action, obviously, just because it's an Avatar book, but I'm not sure I'm expecting too much on that side of things. This is, I think, more about the emotion and, in a way, the idea of these kids who lost their parents, who have now got into a position where they are now extremely powerful and have made kind of names for themselves. What do they want to do with that when it comes to dealing with their past? That will be interesting to see what way they go. I can't really picture them doing it the other way, where Bolin is the one who maybe wants revenge and Mako's the one kind of helping Bolin through it. I kind of feel it does have to almost be the other way. But then I also wonder, like, is Korra or Asami going to be involved in this at all? Because I think for Mako as a character, I do think you need a little bit of he's best friends with Korra, so Korra should help Mako through one of these situations. But the worry there is that if you include too many members of Team Avatar, you take away from the Mako focus. So I think you need to be selective about when you use the other characters overall. But I'd be surprised if we didn't see Korra at all at any point in this. But it's obviously hard to fully speculate on overall. And then overall, it's just we have no clue what other characters are going to be included. Like, I would expect to see Lin, I guess, at some point, if Mako has to make a decision about sort of like, you know, what case he's meant to choose. Like, it feels like Lin is going to be one of the only people who would be like, you're not allowed to be on this case, and what Mako does with that. So might get a tiny bit of Lin here at the start and maybe finish of the book. Otherwise, I'm not sure who else we might see. I think there's going to be probably a lot of new characters. I'm guessing there probably will be a little bit of backstory stuff with Naoki and San. Naoki probably, I think, needs to have a little bit of like page count just to highlight what she was like. To a certain degree, both parents could do it, but you don't want the book to be, I think, overly focused on that, because you are ultimately about exploring Mako in this book. But that's obviously an interesting balance to kind of get, because you are a one-shot comic, and maybe the one-shot is meant to be more about the history of Mako and Bolin than the characterization of Mako and Bolin. But, you know, there's quite a lot of page count in these one-shots. Sometimes it's used well, sometimes it maybe isn't. I'm intrigued. I'm super excited for this book. I think Mako has needed the focus, and I think they've made the right decision in terms of a big story to do. And I'm eager to see Mako, Bolin, anything about the family and the past. I'm excited to see a new Fire Island, even though that plot point has been used a few times now. Just because I think this will be a different Fire Island. It doesn't seem to be a super out of the way obscure one, more like it's just one that's more like in the middle of, like, people know about it, but maybe it gets overlooked a little bit. That's sort of the idea with this one, I think. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are heading into Mystery of Penquan Island. What do you expect from it? What do you think the history of Mako and Bolin's parents are? I suppose more specifically with the mother, Naoki. What do you think the situation is there? Do you think they're going to bring the details surrounding their death up and kind of reveal more kind of angles to it? What's going on the island from the title, of course. And then what do you think they're going to do with the characterization of Mako and also Bolin. But and of course, one minor detail we know about is that apparently Pabu is also in the book quite a bit. So I guess there's quite a few kind of art moments of just Pabu getting to shine, which we see at least a little bit in one of these pages here that has Bolin. Yeah, the last one here, you can see Pabu is here. So I guess Pabu comes along with them, which is kind of interesting. Who knows? Maybe the island might have other fire ferrets on it, which would be kind of fun. But let me know all that stuff in the comments below. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.